Phoenix here, recapping everything that we've seen so far, because there's a few stuff that have caught my eye. So without further ado, let's get straight into it and see how we fared as well in our spoilers for the matches so far. So obviously we began on Friday night. We began with the return of the Bundesliga, and infamously, hands go up in the air immediately, because whilst I said Bayern would win the game, I expected a struggle. I expected Leipzig to put up a genuine fight, but Bayern absolutely blitzed them. And you know my opinions on him as a player. I've told you, like, I don't like him. I didn't like him at Liverpool. I found him extremely overrated and even very frustrating to watch. But it seems like this front four has incredibly good chemistry together. Now, obviously, it's still only the first game against the Leipzig defense that played atrociously bad. But when you have a player like Harry Kane, with that football IQ, like Luis Diaz, let's not forget, like, when he had a number 9 in front of him, most times it was Darwin Núñez. So to go from play with Darwin Núñez to Harry Kane, I mean, it's a completely different stratosphere. It's like you go from watching Bateson to watching Kerto 411. There are levels here, and that's exactly what it seems like Luis Diaz is experiencing. But make no mistake about it, ultimately, without him, it doesn't function. Which is why I find it absolutely hilarious why Bayern Munich fans have the audacity to mock Harry Kane and want him even out of the club, which is crazy. Before he arrived, your top scorers were getting 16 goals a season, with the likes of Choupo-Moting and Gnabry. So let's show a little bit of respect. Olise, I just want to touch a little bit upon as well. He almost went a little bit under the radar last season, not in Germany, because obviously those that watch Bayern week in, week out, they understood his greatness. But of course, there were Lamine Yamal and Mo Salah that play in his position that had an unbelievable season. But I've said this before, for me, he's the third best right winger in the league. You know, whether Prem want to bring up Saka or Palmer, even though he doesn't play as a right wing, Olise is clear of both of those players comfortably. I just want to make sure that there's no debates whatsoever there. And even defensively, the two fullbacks, which were a big problem for Bayern last season, looked good. Even Kim coming on, going on that mazy run. Exciting times to be a Bayern fan. And then they even brought on, of course, Lennart Carlo had an unbelievable preseason. And watch out for this kid, 17 years of age, in the coming games. Then, of course, we had the West Ham-Chelsea game, which was the big one. I said Chelsea would win by 3-1. I wasn't a million miles away. And the reasoning was, again, very simply, mostly based on how bad West Ham are at the moment. And that was way worse than I expected. You know, when West Ham stunned Chelsea, I'm like, okay, you've got the early goal. You're going to have the fans on your side now that were obviously going to be extremely rowdy. And then the defending on some of those Chelsea goals was absolutely horrific. And I want to highlight in particular this man right here, because United fans would know what I'm talking about. But the people that always claim that he's a good defender, he never was a good defender. Being a good tackler does not equate to being a good defender. I mean, his positioning is absolutely atrocious. And I feel for the keeper as well. Like, there's moments he looks good, but like, again, now back-to-back games, 20 million spent on him. That's just not good enough. And Fulkrug, he cannot be a real footballer. How did this guy go from playing in a Champions League final to playing as bad as he currently does for West Ham and has done over the last year since he's arrived? I'll just never understand. This guy was the only one that looked sharp, man. What a signing by West Ham. And once they sort it out a little bit, I do think we're going to see him thrive even more. For Chelsea, continue to be extremely impressed. The news obviously broke out, no Palmer before the game. And I've been criticized for it. Advantage Chelsea. Maresca has a big decision to make when Palmer is back. Because it's very simple. He's not a number 9. He's a better number 10 than Cole Palmer. Of that I can promise you. He makes everybody around him better. That's the job of a number 10. You make everybody around you better. Palmer doesn't. That's not an opinion. That is a fact. Now, whether you want to play Palmer on the right or you want to play him on the left, João Pedro is a better number 10. Now, Liam Delap, I've told you, he's not good. I don't like him, right? But he's the number 9. He's the only number 9 Chelsea have. Because he can do the dirty work and occupy the centre-backs and bring others into play. Nobody else can do that on the team. Which is now, for me, Chelsea, I'm like, well, okay, why would you not go for a number 9 with a week to go as opposed to buying Garnacho or Xavi Simons, which make absolutely no sense to me. But alas, we'll see what happens. And of course, massive shout out to many players in this team, but Estevao, electrifying player. I cannot wait to watch this guy. I said it won't take him long to claim a spot in the starting 11, officially, so to speak. There's going to be plenty of games. He's going to feature a lot. Against Fulham, it's crazy if he doesn't start to me. Absolutely crazy. Electrifying. That's the best word to describe him. Obviously, the midfield done their job as always, and massive shout out to Chalobah. He was sensational and got a goal for it as well. Then we move on to Saturday, and the game at the Etihad. I told you Spurs double chance. I thought it would be 2-2. When I seen the lineup, I was surprised from City, because why would you change a team that won 4-0? That seems a little bit crazy to me. Then Cherki and Marmoush come in. Now here's the issue immediately with Manchester City. Obviously, Trafford had a disastrous game. It is what it is. 8-0 came off. Rico Lewis, he's not City level. We know that. So without stating the obvious too much, here's the thing that concerns me. So Cherki starts, Marmoush starts, Reinders plays deeper. It is what it is. Now, Marmoush had a bad half, right? He was getting into positions though, but he was missing. But I want to rephrase this and state this. If you think Marmoush is a bad player, again, I don't think football is for you. Now, Cherki, again, disaster. Beef Cherki, all the nicknames that people can come up with, they were correct in saying those. But here's my issue. The two players that come on for them, Bernardo Silva and Jeremy Doku. Bernardo Silva was worse than Cherki. But of course, the expectations are different, right? The performance from him when he came on, it was sickening to watch. And Doku, 10 times more frustrating than Marmoush. At least Marmoush is involved and he gets goal-scoring opportunities. The issue, of course, is Marmoush is not a left winger. Now, City are in this dilemma. I wouldn't panic too much, right? But of course, with a week to go, they have an opportunity to potentially bring in Rodrigo and Donnarumma. With the game Trafford had, and he should have been sent off, by the way, and the officials made a complete mess of that to begin with, then City should have had a penalty in the second half, but alas. So, with those two available, I think City would be crazy now not to go for them. Especially Rodrigo, I think he'll elevate them to a whole different level. As for Spurs, watch what Thomas Frank said before the game. We're here to win. The feeling I got from Spurs, even when they beat City last season at the Etihad with Ange, is like, that's a one-off. What's the likelihood of that happening again next time Spurs play another Big 16? And I was proven correct because it never worked. You watch Spurs in Big Six games, they'll win one, they'll get better than 3 more. With this Thomas Frank team, you get the feeling that gone are the days of Spurs before the game knowing they're going to be outfought, they're going to be out-tacticked. Gone are those days. They're going to be in the game. Now, of course, in a football game, there are episodes that will happen. But the game plan was spot on, and that's why I said Spurs will cause Manchester City plenty of problems. The midfield, physically, wow, they dominated cities. Which is, again, a bit surprising why Pep just didn't start like that and then bring Cherki and Marmoush on second half like he done the week before. His work rate, by the way, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Thomas Frank has even turned Pedro Porro into what looks like a competent defensive right back as well. Romero, all the people that hate on him, go claim now he's not a top 3 centre back in the league. He easily is. Sensational. And this guy, the most improved player that I've watched this season so far. Phenomenal. And people that say, by the way, that he's good, get out of here, man. Get out of here. Tap in, and then everything else, terrible. I'm bored. Every time is the same story with this guy, man. Please, man, give Frank the reinforcements you need. Because the issue with Spurs now is they'll feel the same 11 next week, and then they can potentially look like a completely different team. So, But either way, massive shout out to Thomas Frank. I fear for Villa. I kept an eye on this. This is looking doom and gloom. You gotta fear. Then, of course, Napoli began their Serie A title defense, and both De Bruyne and McTominay on the score sheet. I'm concerned for Napoli. I picked them to win the league. It's the Conte factor primarily, but they have a squad now where they can compete on multiple competitions. So I don't think people saying, "Oh, that's going to have such a big effect on them," but they've strengthened the tremendously. Interestingly, Conte is looking like, obviously last season they had Anguissa, Lobotka, Anguissa, McTominay. It seems like with the addition of De Bruyne is going to play number 10. McTominay shifts to the left, but he's still just as effective because they're doing the same thing. They get the ball in these areas. McTominay crashes the box, bang. And then De Bruyne scoring his first goal in Italian football with one of those, it was going to be a cross. The keeper takes this across and then it ends up going in the back of the net. But the City need a player like him to come on instead of Bernardo Silva today, eh? Then came the Arsenal game at the Emirates Stadium, and typical Arsenal. I went minus 1.5 like I told you. I think I fancied Arsenal to win by more than a goal. I don't rate Leeds whatsoever. I couldn't see how Leeds will score. So we got that part absolutely spot on. But the set pieces again, it's like the first one had to be a set piece. Gyokeres, I couldn't believe what I was seeing in that first half, the chance that he missed. Timber at this point, I think it's well established. He's the best right back in the league. I told you this last season. There's people that were still debating that. There is no debate to be had. The difference between Ben White and Timber is night and day. I'm still not completely sold on Zubi. Like I'm not completely sold. At times it's just like, I like that he tries going vertical, but I want to see him at Anfield next week. Odegaard, I'm sickened. Sickened, by the way. Okay? If you have a foot injury, I can understand. A little shoulder pop, the captain of Arsenal, earning 200k per week, and he comes off minute 38. Come on, man. It's ridiculous. But back in my days, Franz Beckenbauer played with a cast on his hand for 30 minutes. Plus, in a World Cup semi-final game. Utterly ridiculous. He's not captain material, man. That's sickening to watch. But of course, most of the talk will be on Saka's injury. I don't know if it's the same hamstring. If it is, I'm deeply concerned. Obviously, that lengthy period that he was out, hamstrings you don't mess around with. Those that played football, you'd understand what I'm talking about. Most of the chat, of course, would never have kicked the ball in their life. The only time they did was virtually on a freaking video game. But that aside, I'm concerned. I'm very concerned. I think he'll miss at least the next month's games. They need to be very careful. Now, with Victor, that chance that he missed in the first half, I'm convinced anybody else scores that in the Premier League. I would even go as far as saying I think I'd score that. I don't know what the hell he was trying to do. But the first goal that he scored, that is Victor Gyokeres. That is a very hard goal to score. And he basically, it was literally a hit and hope. Like, I think it was Calafiore that just launched the ball in space. That's it. But then Gyokeres had everything to do, and he did. Even the penalty, by the way. He has to take penalties. That's proper penalty. No freaking stutter nonsense. Proper penalty. Whack it in. But obviously, great performance. I'm not sold on Arsenal. Far from it. Last week, they were poor. I wasn't completely moved but with the performance yesterday. But of course, when you win 5-0, you have to be extremely satisfied. Then we shifted to, first and foremost, attention, because they could be in big trouble. Simeone could be in big trouble at risk of being sacked. To drop points at home to Elche after losing away to Espanyol. Watch out for this one. I just don't understand. I think his tactics may be outdated. It's obviously we'll get into the same kind of conversation for this one here. This is the one I hold my hands up in the air and say I got wrong. I didn't see this coming whatsoever. I thought it's going to be typical Allegri, make sure they don't concede. And you're playing at home to a newly promoted team. But Nicola, shout out to him, obviously, was Cagliari manager. He had Cremonese playing some fantastic football. Baschirotto was sensational. And the goal that Bonazzoli scored, if you haven't seen it, please do. That'll be the goal of the weekend to sink a Milan team. Oh, but we're going to be playing one game a week. We're going to win the league. Lord have mercy. Juventus fans would be all familiar with what they seen yesterday. That was shambolic. Estupinam, by the way, one of the worst debuts I've ever seen. I mean, Jesus Christ. Theo Hernandez didn't have a good season last season, but him at his worst is significantly better than whatever Estupinam put out yesterday. And they still have the same issues, Milan, defensively. The centre-backs individually, they're not good enough. They're going to be leaking. And I thought Allegri would sort it, but not yet. Loftus-Cheek was a disaster. Jimenez, Pulisic, not working. When Leao comes back, we'll see what happens. But what I found surprising and disappointing with Milan was you're playing at home to Cremonese. To me, it looked like that's a 4-3-3. Even with Leao missing, that should have been a 4-3-3. And of course, Yashari, Richie didn't even come on. Now, Modric, okay, you're going to use him in these type of games, but Richie and Yashari, I mean, Yashari came on, how can Richie not start? He's been started in pre-season. It doesn't make any sense. So, alas, problems already for Milan's Allegri. And then the final game, of course, to discuss is the Levante-Barcelona game. Wow. First and foremost, Barca cheated last week. They got cheated this week. I said Barca minus 1.5, and it should have been a Barca minus 1.5. How can that be given a penalty? And then they identified that it was the same referee for the Clasico last season, the one who said that the Tchouaméni one was not a penalty, which is the correct decision in my opinion. He looked at the monitor, said that's not a penalty, looked at the monitor yesterday, said that's a penalty. He made up his mind up in 10 seconds. It's crazy. But Barca have issues. We knew they had issues last week. They most definitely have issues. Well, before we get into that, Levante, you're a disgusting club. Flooding the pitch. That was ridiculous to play in those conditions. La Liga have to act. You cannot do stuff like that. But here's the problems for Barca. I told you, I warned you about number 5. I warned you and you didn't listen. Oh, but he's the best young player, playing centre back in the world. He's Bastoni. He can't defend. My boy got sent to La Masia in the first goal. The guy, what was he trying to do? If that was Araujo, you'd be all over him. But you know who was the good one? Araujo. Sensational performance. But no, the fact of the matter is, Inigo Martinez was the one holding Kubarsi's hands last week. Or last season. I tried to warn you and you didn't listen. You better buy a centre-back within this next week, or you're going to be in freaking trouble. Then Casado. If it's true that you had a 30 million offer for Casado and you rejected it or he didn't want to leave, yikes. Where is Bernal? Bring Bernal in the team. Casado is not needed. Please, man, for the love of God. He ain't Barca level. Gavi should have started there. And I'm not even Gavi's biggest fan. Lamine, concerning that he gave the ball away twice, which led to the 2 Levante goals. But even when he's supposedly not at his worst or at his best, he was far from it. He still was getting past his man continuously. And eventually he got the winning goal via that. Well, Barca got the winning goal via that. Ferran Torres disgrace. I don't want to speak about that. Poor Marcus Rashford. I feel a little bit bad for him. But of course, the best midfielder in the world was the one that kickstarted the comeback. Their ability to score at will from absolutely nothing, just like they done last season, when they're not playing good, is remarkable to watch. But Vitinha this, Neves this, whoever you want to mention, he's the best midfielder in the world. It's not even close. Please, man. Please, how is this still a debate? He's now added the ability to fire a shot from outside the box like he done yesterday, which you could call his only weakness was shooting, right? Come on, man. There's no comparisons left to be had. Shout out to the best midfielder in the league. I'm very excited to watch these upcoming games, of course, on Sunday and, of course, Monday. We'll be live, as always, on Twitch and YouTube. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you all for watching. Phoenix, out.